The session this morning is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. In this class, we're going to learn about ocean pollution and how we can help solve the problem, something we should all be concerned about. So our presenter today is one of my wonderful coworkers, Tom Aloise, and he joined the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection Youth Environmental Program in 2014 after working for 5 years in the agency's communication department. So he is our liaison when it comes to communication. He covers the 9-county region of the state, and he works with many teachers, schools, 4-H club, scouts, and other youth organizations to promote environmental stewardship among young West Virginians. He is a native of Huntington, West Virginia, and a graduate of Marshall University. Don't hold that against him. Just kidding. And he earned a bachelor's degree in journalism. In his spare time, Tom enjoys running, hiking, and generally just being outside in West Virginia's beautiful environment. Thank you, Tom, for presenting today.
Thanks, Susan. Appreciate that. So I'm going to talk about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and right on cue, there's a fly. It's flying right around my head here, so I'll try to ignore that. So you might be thinking, why do we need to worry about trash in the oceans living in West Virginia? We certainly don't live near an ocean, right? So just remember, the ocean is the end of the line for the trash of mankind. You like that, Susan? I made that up last night. So if you guys want to use that, it costs $100 because I'm going to copyright that line. So what's that mean? Well, it means that everything flows downstream, right? Everything ends up in the ocean eventually. So that plastic bottle that might get thrown on the ground anywhere in your community or anywhere really to get carried by the wind or rain into a stream. That stream goes to a bigger stream, then to a river, then to a bigger river, and ultimately it ends up in the ocean, right? And it stays there pretty much forever. So I'm going to be talking a lot about plastic pollution. So I wanted to get us kind of thinking about plastic pollution. So I'm going to ask you some true and false questions here to start off, and you guys can type in the chat room whether you think these statements are true or false. So the first one is, and Beth and Susan, you guys can jump in too. True or false, roughly 100 billion plastic shopping bags are used and disposed of in the United States every year. 100 billion, that's billion with a B. Do you guys think that's true or false? What's everybody think? Susan
I'm going
says
with true.
Okay. Savannah says true. Tracy thinks false. Anybody else want to jump in there? Roughly 100 billion plastic shopping bags are used and disposed of in the United States every year. That statement is true. Ashley jumped in after I gave the answer. That doesn't count, Ashley. Okay. Here's another one. The average use time for a plastic shopping bag, the average time we use a plastic shopping bag is 60 minutes. Is that true or false? The average time a person uses a plastic shopping bag before it's disposed of, 60 minutes. True or false? Susan says false. Tucker says true. Jeffrey's true. That is I said 60 minutes. That is a false statement. It's actually 12 minutes. So everybody who said false got that one correct. So think about that. A plastic shopping bag, you might go to the store just to pick up a few items. Probably didn't take you very long. You came home, put the items away. You have your plastic shopping bag. You either put it in a recycling bin or you dispose of it. So 12 minutes. Okay. True or false? We use between 300 to 500 million plastic straws every day in the United States. 300 to 500 million plastic straws every day in the United States. Is that true or false? Tucker says false. Beth says true. That is true. Every day in the United States, we use between 300 to 500 million plastic straws, according to estimates. Okay, one more. True or false? About 2 million plastic shopping bags are used worldwide every minute. 2 million plastic shopping bags are used worldwide every minute. True or false?
If you're just joining, be sure to put your answers there in the chat.
I'm seeing some trues. I got a false. That statement is true. 2 million plastic shopping bags are used worldwide every minute. Think about that stat. Okay. So let me share my screen and we'll get on with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Share screen. Okay. Am I up and running here? You see my garbage patch
Yep.
screen? You
We
got me?
see it.
Okay. Okay, so how are garbage patches formed? Well, first of all, a garbage patch is just like a large area of trash in the ocean where litter accumulates. Things, mostly plastics, which we'll be talking about a lot during this presentation, also fishing gear, and then other marine debris collects. And they're formed by what we call ocean gyres. And there's several ocean gyres, there's 5 main ocean gyres. And it's basically a convergent of currents. So think of a big whirlpool just spinning around and kind of sucking all this debris into the middle and trapping it there. That's kind of the mindset you have to have for an ocean gyre and how these garbage patches are formed. So there are 5 gyres in the ocean. There's one in the Indian Ocean, 2 in the Atlantic, and 2 in the Pacific Ocean. And there's actually garbage patches in all of our oceans of varying sizes. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch that's located in the North Pacific Gyre, you can see by the arrow there, right off the coast of California, is the largest of the garbage patches. Scientists knew there were garbage patches out there, but they never really had studied them very much. And in 1977, there was a racing boat captain by the name of Charles Moore, who actually sailed through the area we know now as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and kind of discovered it. And since then, there's been more and more attention drawn to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You can see my cursor here. Right here is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's actually kind of 2 patches where the trash kind of just rotates from one patch to the other. It's pulled through currents. So there's actually like a patch here. It's considered one, and then one right here, but it's kind of the trash kind of rotates from area to area through the convergence of the currents. And you can see the other patches as well in the oceans. So do you think the Great Pacific Garbage Patch looks like this? Is it a big island of trash? Or do you think it looks more like this? Patch is really a misleading name. It's not a big island of trash. You can't really see it from the sky. It doesn't look like an area of land. And the reason is because a lot of the debris is so small, it is broken down to what we call microplastics, which I'll talk more about in a minute. And also the debris is spread very much from the top of the ocean and actually all the way to the bottom of the ocean floor. And like I say, it ranges in a lot of different sizes. There's the microplastics that are really small that sometimes you can't even see with the naked eye. And then there's a lot of abandoned fishing nets and fishing equipment that collects in the garbage patch as well. And as this points out, sometimes you can sail through the patch and see very little debris at all because it's just so small and so spread out. And here's a little bit more to talk about that topic.
We've all heard about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Is it what we think it is?
So the Great Pacific Garbage Patch really is a misnomer. It's not a patch. It's not a mass. It's nothing you can see from space. All these things once heard. But in fact, it's just a giant soup, a gyre, a whirlpool of plastic in the ocean at various depths. So it's not as if you can stand on this garbage patch. It's not an island of garbage.
Just to the north of these islands lies a convergence zone of currents that cause plastics to accumulate in that area. When I went through it on my own sailboat, I saw lots of things floating in the water. A large derelict fishing net, a ghost net, or I might see a bottle or a crate. And then also you have stuff like sticks and wood also collecting in this garbage patch. Even if the debris isn't a floating mat of trash, even if it's more dispersed than that, it can still hold an enormous amount of plastic.
Even if you're in the middle of the garbage patch, you often can't see the plastic because it's below the surface.
But that's not all of it. It's only part of what's in the garbage patch. They're very small fragments of what were bigger pieces of plastic.
Plastics that are in the ocean are exposed to a lot of different factors. They're exposed to ultraviolet radiation from the sun. They're exposed to wave action. They're exposed to reefs and rocks, sand. And so there are a lot of things that are contributing to these plastics breaking down into smaller pieces.
You know, the plastic's spread out. It's under the surface. It's not an easy thing to mop up. If it were a garbage island, I think it probably would be much easier to clean up.
Okay, come on.
We've all heard about
Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about microplastics. The important thing to understand about plastic, which maybe some of you already do, is it doesn't break down naturally. It's not organic. So microorganisms like bacteria who like to eat things like food waste and yard waste, they don't like to eat plastic. So plastic doesn't break down that way. So it never really goes away. Now, when it's in the ocean, as that gentleman pointed out, it's exposed to a lot of conditions, including sunlight. Sunlight will break it down, but only into tiny pieces of plastic, which we call microplastics. And they're no bigger than the end of an eraser, on the end of a pencil, and sometimes even smaller than that. So if you were counting the pieces of plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, it's estimated that 94% of the total would be microplastics. But that would just be 8% of the weight of the total tonnage, right? Because most of that weight comes from the abandoned fishing gear, like nets and ropes and things like that. How much plastic is in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? Well, that's really hard to determine, but they estimate approximately 80,000 tons. That would be the same weight as 500 jumbo jets. You can see the person in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and kind of gives you an indication of how big a jumbo jet is. So just imagine 500 of those. And as far as pieces of plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, they're estimating 1.8 trillion. That's equal to 200 pieces of debris for every person on the planet. They'd like to say the garbage patch is twice the size of Texas, which is mind-blowing enough, but they really don't know how big it is. So it's safe to say that it's huge. So I just threw out some synonyms for huge. You can pick any of those words there to describe the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Pick your favorite word. I like prodigious. So what are we doing to clean up the floating debris in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? There is something called the Ocean Cleanup, and it's a program that was actually started by a young man. I think he was maybe 18 or 19 at the time, in 2013, and he's a Dutch inventor. And he hopes to clean up half of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch over the next 5 years, which is that's a really big goal there. That's going to be tough to do, I would think. And his team consists of 90 engineers, researchers, and scientists. And that system you see there, they're in the process of making more of those. I don't know how many they have right now. Basically, the way that works is it's a passive system, which means it doesn't have to be constantly maintained by people. They don't have to be out there running the system. What they do is they tow it out into the ocean, and it's carried by winds and waves and currents. And you see the floating piece of the equipment. Below that is a screen that collects trash and debris into the middle of that. And periodically ships come into the middle and remove what is collected. So they take that out there, they tow it out into the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and then just kind of let it go and let nature pull it along. And periodically they'll take a ship into the middle there and collect everything that's that it has caught. This video is from maybe a year or two ago, and I don't think this is the first kind of catch that they had from one of these pieces of equipment. It was kind of a big deal when they brought it into shore. And this video talks a little bit about what they found and what they plan to do with some of the materials. This isn't all they caught, obviously, or all they collected. It's just kind of a sampling. So I'll let you watch this.
And after a rough launch from the Bay Area, an ambitious effort to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is finally seeing results. KPIX5's Emily Turner on the huge haul the ship brought in and the plan for all that plastic.
After quite a rocky start, the ocean cleanup has now accomplished round one of its goal, cleaning up the Pacific Garbage Patch. And what they've brought in has an interesting end.
Welcome everyone here.
Surrounded by bags of trash from the Pacific Garbage Patch, the ocean cleanup showed off everything from massive ghost nets to tiny microplastics. But mostly, they were there to announce the project's success. Launched from Alameda in September of last year, the team has spent more than the last 12 months ironing out bugs until finally, in October of this year, it worked.
We had our ups and downs, we had problems, we had structural failures, but eventually the team was able to take those lessons into account and actually get to a point that we had a system that was successfully catching plastic.
This haul was only a small part of the big plan to clean 50% of the patch in 5 years by building a whole fleet of similar systems. The group is also working to identify the source of all the plastic in an effort to prevent further future pollution. Then the trash will go on to live a second life, fueling the rest of the cleanup.
So what we're going to do is we're going to recycle this plastic and we're going to turn it into beautiful, sustainable products.
100% of the proceeds of the sale of those products, whatever they may end up being, will go back into the project, funding the next round of cleanup, but this time on a major scale. Emily Turner, KPIX 5.
And after a rough...
Okay, so where's all that plastic coming from? We know we are responsible for most of it. And the ocean cleanup looked further into maybe what rivers were being impacted the most and delivering most of the plastic waste into the ocean. And they came up with 1,000 rivers across the planet that are contributing the majority of plastic to the oceans. And most of those rivers are in really kind of growing areas or populous cities, but the local authorities or local government haven't really established really good waste management practices or recycling programs. So there's a lot of waste being dumped into rivers. And also those rivers are located where there's a lot of wind and rain, which would make sense because wind and rain are two factors that play into the transportation of plastic from land into rivers. Those rivers are also close to an ocean, which also obviously makes sense. And some of the countries include India, Brazil, China, Vietnam, and Malaysia. So they've determined what rivers are causing a lot of the plastic. Now they're trying to figure out, okay, so let's go back and see if we can develop systems to collect some of this plastic trash out of the rivers before it gets to the ocean. So they're in the process of building these devices they're calling them the Interceptor. And I think they've constructed a couple of them, and they're being used in other countries. But this video explains a little more about what the Interceptor is, how it works, and what it does. And the ocean cleanup is the driving force behind the Interceptor. Okay, ambitious goals again with that. I don't think any of us will be seeing an Interceptor coming down a river near your home anytime soon, but that's a pretty cool piece of equipment. I think they've maybe built 2 so far, and they're hoping to build several more. But pretty neat, pretty innovative thinking there, in my opinion. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what's causing all these problems. And I've already talked to you about plastic doesn't biodegrade, it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces we call microplastics. And between 4 and 12 million tons of plastic enter our oceans every year, and 80% of that is estimated to come from land-based sources like us. So the path of plastic. So a lot of the plastic we use ends up in landfills because it gets thrown in the trash. Now the landfill is a better ending point than the environment for plastic, but it's still not a great ending point because, as I've said here several times now, plastic doesn't break down. And in a landfill where it doesn't get any sunlight, very little oxygen, and it doesn't get the material, the things it needs to break down into even smaller pieces of plastic, kind of stays intact for a long, long time. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of years, maybe even longer, but it really never goes away in a landfill. We do recycle some plastic, not nearly enough. So unfortunately, most of the plastics that is used ends up as litter. So when it ends up as litter, a lot of times it ends up in our water, right? So you look at this picture here, looks like an aluminum can. There's some more plastic there, plastic cup, a straw. It looks like maybe a styrofoam cup or a plastic cup, which is styrofoam is plastic. So if it rains or gets windy, where do you think that trash is going to end up? It's going to go right down into that stream or river or whatever that is there at the top of the picture. Then once it gets into the stream or river, it flows down, as I've mentioned, into another river. It ultimately ends up in the ocean. This is a really good video. This is my favorite video. This is about the elusive plastic shopping bag. It's a creature out there that we can't seem to tame.
The open plains of the asphalt jungle, home to many creatures great and small, and the popping ground for one of the most clever and illustrious creatures, the plastic bag. Today we explore the cycle of life for this curious creature, the plastic bag, on its migration to its home, the Pacific Ocean. Once released into the wild, the plastic bag is unsure of itself. It falters at first, but soon, with some help from the wind, the bag will be airborne. This flight will be the first in its long journey towards its final destination, the garbage patch in the heart of the Pacific Ocean. Using the wind to guide it, the plastic bag moves across the city through the air. A city park. This park may at first seem an idyllic place for the plastic bag, but danger lurks round every corner. Here it will encounter many enemies, including one of the most dangerous, park services. Poor little fellow. Looks like his journey ends here. Meanwhile, our little bag has encountered one of nature's most deadly killers, the teacup Yorkie. Once the Yorkie has locked onto its victim, there's very little hope of survival. But using its superior size and deft maneuvering, our bag manages to escape the Yorkie's talons and flee for its life. Over the course of its miraculous migration, the plastic bag will cover vast distances through neighborhoods, across parks, and down city streets. It is now nightfall, and our highly advanced night vision cameras have managed to capture for the first time in history a plastic bag in pitch black. Phenomenal. The vast cement rivers of California, home to literally dozens of animals. Many plastic bags will not make it out of here. The reeds and branches will see to that. As at home in water as it is on land or in the air, the bag's natural buoyancy makes it an excellent swimmer. It's close now, and it can feel it. At last, the bag has reached the gateway to the open sea. Careful to avoid the mouths of hungry sea life that feed on the helpless plastic, the bag will travel hundreds of miles to join the thriving community of plastic known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. The Garbage Patch is a veritable plastic oasis where millions of tons of plastic garbage remain trapped by the currents. It is said to be twice the size of Texas. Never actually biodegrading, here the plastic bag can live indefinitely, peacefully coexisting with billions of other petroleum species before breaking into ever tinier plastic pieces, thus completing the plastic cycle of life.
Okay, I've seen that bag before. Have you guys? It's been by my house. I know it has. I see those all the time floating around everywhere. When I'm driving down the interstate, I'll see one float across the road, just like in that video. So why do we need to worry about plastic pollution in the ocean? Well, as you can see in the photos there, marine life can be caught or tangled up in old plastic fishing gear and entangled in all kinds of nets that are out there. And we'll talk a little bit about consuming plastic too, because animals like sea turtles that really love jellyfish, a lot of the floating plastic will resemble a jellyfish, so the sea turtle will try to eat it. The albatross will mistake plastic pellets for eggs and try to feed them to their chicks. And there's all kinds of information, all kinds of stories and photos on the internet about whales and other aquatic life that have washed up on shore with just enormous amounts of plastic in their stomachs. And, you know, they don't get any nutrition from the plastic. There has no nutrition value. So they fill up with plastic and then they think they're full and they become malnourished and die. Plastics break down and also release chemicals into the water that could enter the food chain as well. We're still studying the impact of garbage patches on us, but I think it's safe to reason that you know, aquatic life, fish that we eat is consuming microplastics. So through us eating seafood, perhaps we're consuming microplastics as well. That's a topic that's still really being studied, and more information is probably going to come out on that later. So what can we do? The three main problems that are contributing to the problem, or three main issues that are contributing to the problem: littering, overuse of plastic, and then the lack of recycling. So littering's easy to really work towards solving. Basically, don't do it, right? Don't be a litter bug. Make sure you properly dispose of your waste. Maybe if you see another family member littering, you can ask them nicely to not do that and to throw it away properly, because of the harmful effects it could have on the environment, animals, and us, and of course the ocean. Try not to use single-use plastic. Use reusable shopping bags instead of single-use shopping bags, or don't even take a shopping bag if you don't need to. You go to the store and just buy a couple items, just say no thank you to the bag. Don't bring one home. You can reuse your plastic shopping bags, which people really don't do very much. The plastic shopping bag, the single-use plastic bag that we see in Kroger and Walmart and everywhere, was invented back in the 50s. And the inventor's original intention was that people would use that bag over and over again, because plastic's really strong and durable and light. He just assumed that people would use it again and again and again. And one reason he thought it was wise to invent a plastic shopping bag was to reduce the amount of paper bags we were using to save trees. So what happened was plastic shopping bags became so convenient and so cheap to use that they just proliferated. You know, they're everywhere. So actually, those Kroger bags that you bring home, you could actually reuse those, take them back to the store and reuse them again. You can also recycle those as well. And we know about straws. You know, straws are being used a lot. Obviously, single-use straws, you use them one time and throw them away, right? There's nothing else really you can do with a straw. So try to use those as little as possible. So choose alternatives to your single-use disposable items. For example, instead of buying maybe the 8-pack of Pepsi there that's wrapped in plastic and served in plastic bottles, maybe you can just buy one bottle of Pepsi and drink it out of a glass. Or try not to use disposable plates and forks and cups and things of that nature, and use regular forks and plates and cups. And then try to use a reusable water bottle instead of drinking water out of store-bought bottles that you see on the left there. As far as recycling goes, a lot of communities have recycling drop-off that will take a lot of different recyclables, including plastic and paper, cardboard, metal, things like that. You can find out where those are in your county maybe and start recycling if you're not doing it already at home. Some cities have curbside recycling services. Some schools recycle, some don't. Maybe if your school doesn't recycle, maybe you can request it and start out with something small, maybe just recycled paper, and then work your way up to plastic. A lot of times there's issues with somebody being able to come and collect the recyclables once you have collected them at your school. But you may find a willing parent to drive them to the recycling center if there's not a city or county service that will come and pick them up. This is the final video. I just want to kind of get you kind of thinking about plastic pollution in our oceans.
I remember the first time I saw a blue whale.
Oh, look.
Wow. I followed them since childhood.
What do you think it's from? Is it from a ship?
I could see plastic everywhere. We were in what we thought was a relatively pristine environment. I started to wonder what was happening in oceans elsewhere on the planet. Growing up, my world was the ocean. It's where I feel the most spiritual.
As a freediver, it was the place where I proved myself to myself. Finally, have the opportunity to pay the sea back.
Only a fraction of the plastic that we produce is recycled. This is never going to degrade. It's got nowhere to go.
This was something that these animals, they were forced to endure because it was man-made and we'd put it into their environment.
The record is 276 pieces of plastic inside of one 90-day-old chick.
If the plastics are in the food chain for the dolphin, they're also in our food chain.
Exactly.
Communities are built on these landfill sites.
So sweet potatoes, corn, sugarcane, all growing on 40 years of garbage. Do you have anything not wrapped in plastic?
No.
No.
We have to make our life better for our kids' children. Change is possible. It starts with us.
Okay, so it really does start with us. We could all, as residents of this earth, we can all really make a difference. I mean, there's no action that you take that's too small, really. Just the simple act of starting recycling plastic bottles at your house is going to help solve this problem, or any kind of recycling. Just the being aware of how you dispose of your waste, making sure you throw it away properly, and to remember the 3 R's. Try to reduce the amount of plastic you're using or any waste you're producing. Try to reuse items that you might normally throw away. Think of alternative ways you can reuse items. If you can't reuse things, then always try to find a way to recycle them. And it all adds up to a happier earth. So if you keep those in mind and spread the word to your friends and family, and we can all really make a difference. So I'm going to stop my share. And that is all I have. I did want to mention one thing. I don't know how many Netflix watchers we have out there, but there's a documentary on Netflix called Seaspiracy. I don't know if any of you have seen that. And the producer of the documentary acknowledges the problem of plastic in our oceans, but he also brings up another problem that he believes, his opinion is that there's even a bigger problem, and it's the overfishing of our oceans. And he pointed out some very interesting facts, or he presented these facts. There are 4.5 million commercial fishing vessels at sea, 4.5 million, and 2.7 trillion fish are caught every year by commercial fishing. And his theory was that that's disrupting, ecosystems and habitats, and it's really harming the ocean. And a lot of the fishing is done illegally. And it's a really interesting documentary that gives another side to a problem that we have in our oceans. I never knew about it, but it's very enlightening. So if you have a chance to watch that, if you have Netflix, maybe it'll be available on other channels as well down the road. It's called Seaspiracy. If there's any questions or comments or anything you guys want to throw out in the chat, that would be great. We're just about ready to wrap up.
That was great, Tom. That's a lot of the information is just very eye-opening if you're not aware of it, and it's very concerning. And we, like you said, we can all do just small things to make bigger impacts. Anybody have any questions? Oh, I loved the majestic plastic bag. That was,
I love that video.
that
That's
was
so
hilarious.
good. Yeah.
Funny, not funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have any further questions for Tom?
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. You can leave the room and it will allow you to either return to our main session, or if you're not registered for any other sessions today, we hope that you'll stay with us to leave the room and go back to the main one. And then we have 2 presenters at 10 o'clock. So hopefully you'll stick with us and enjoy some of the other presentations we have today. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.